And welcome to Hannity Tonight. The disaster known as Obamacare continues to unravel as yet another provision of the controversial health care overhaul has been delayed. We're going to have much more on that developing story in just a moment. But first, for the very first time, we are hearing from some Republican insiders that the GOP majority in the House of Representatives could be in jeopardy come 2014. That is, unless the party rolls out an aggressive plan to save America. Now, according to Byron York of the Washington Examiner, he said, quote, behind the scenes, in whispered asides, not for public consumption, some Republicans are now worried that keeping the House is not such a done deal after all. So how can that upset be avoided? York continues. He writes, quote, Republican candidates don't need to tell voters what a bad job the president is doing. They already know that. Instead, quote, what GOP candidates need to do is convince voters that they would do a better job than the Democrats. Well, I couldn't agree any more. And in my opinion, that task begins with one thing: defunding Obamacare. Because today alone, there are two brand new pieces of evidence proving this law is nothing more than a legislative train wreck. It's not ready for prime time. Now, first, we are learning that the president has delayed yet another very costly provision of his health care overhaul for 1 year. Now, this one deals with placing caps on out-of-pocket insurance costs. But his unilateral decision to alter this law that was passed by Congress, well, that's raising some very serious constitutional questions. Let's watch.
The president doesn't get to write legislation, and it's illegal and unconstitutional for him to try to change legislation by himself. So if he says to you, oh, you're a political contributor of mine, and I know Obamacare is going to be hard on you, I'm going to give you an exemption, that's illegal. That's not equal protection under the law.
Now, in addition to this apparent unconstitutional and illegal delay, Senator Rand Paul was talking about the administration's outrageous decision to exempt many federal employees from Obamacare. Now, you heard me right. Let me repeat the very same thing. That government, those officials at the White House and other agencies that are tasked with implementing this law will be able to keep their current plan. Now, this is exactly the type of bureaucratic hypocrisy that Republican candidates need to expose come 2014. Now, if they're able to do that, not only is the House safe, the Senate is very much in play for the GOP. Joining me now to help examine the future of both parties and react to these latest Obamacare developments, we have former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee, conservative author, attorney, the one and only David Limbaugh. Welcome both of you to the program.
Hey, Sean.
Austin,
thanks for having me.
Let me ask you a question. Isn't it just morally wrong that these guys exempt themselves from the very laws and burdens they're placing on the rest of us? Isn't that wrong?
In general, I'm very skeptical of that. But I will say in this case, I think that you're leaving out one major part, which is in the normal Obamacare, people would qualify for subsidies who go into the exchanges, but the people working in Congress would not qualify for the tax credits. So they are were in a totally different circumstance than people in the normal situation.
For thee, not for me. David.
Sean and Mr. Goolsbee, first place, I partially disagree with Byron York, who I have a lot of respect for. In the first place, we never take for granted a congressional victory. All seats are up every 2 years, all 435 of them. We can never take them for granted. We need not to coast, but to go in aggressively and campaign and to give voters a choice. But more importantly, I disagree with his point that voters are aware of Obama's failed record. My brother Rush talks about the Limbaugh principle, where Obama is able to distance himself from his own policies and act like an outsider. Republicans have not done a good enough job specifically tying Obama and Mr. Goolsbee, his economic architect, to these disastrous policies that are destroying the country. And it's a false choice to say we either have to make a negative case or a positive. Of course we give a positive case, a pro-growth plan, defunding Obamacare and presenting an alternative, and getting America back to work again.
Let me ask you a legal question. Now, first there was the delay of Obamacare's Medicare cuts. Then there was the employer mandate delay. Then we have this new development that I just spoke of. You're the lawyer. Can the president just unilaterally decide to change a law of the land?
The contempt that he has shown for the Constitution and the rule of law is appalling in so many areas, EPA, all kinds of environmental things. But on this Obamacare, it's frightening. There has been 7 different delays. Remember the thousands of in implementation. Remember the thousands of waivers. Remember the employer mandate that he exempted and he delayed, and he did not delay the employee mandate discriminatorily. That's got to be unconstitutional. Of course, that's unconstitutional. Right. And he doesn't have the authority to do it. Mr. Goolsbee, I wish you would condemn President Obama from, hopefully you would say, departing from what you would recommend. The president has no authority to unilaterally change a law that Congress passed and he signed.
Austin?
Well, he has no authority to change a law, but if the law gives the administration authority to the administration for the law, then they do have the right to administer it however the law sees fit. And there has been, other than on this program, there has not been any serious legal challenge to the constitutionality of the administrative changes there. All they're talking about is a delay of 6 months so that the insurance companies can get their computer systems sufficient so that they can add up what all the out-of-pocket costs are to the employees.
Did you guys even care? A bunch of academic pointy-head tyrants sitting around their tables devising this law. Did you have any idea what it would do? You didn't. Nobody read it. But it's not just a matter of reading. Nobody reads 1,400, 2,000-page laws. They had no idea, no fundamental understanding of what that law contained. They still don't. They're finding out, and yet it is being imposed on the American people, except that Obama says he won't impose it on specific people and specific groups.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
I want to ask you this question.
Okay.
And I'm not tag teaming David here. I want an answer to this, though. Wait a minute. This law has it's a very specific law with very specific dates in it. Tell me how the president can unilaterally pick and choose what parts of the law he's going to uphold at whatever time he chooses. He doesn't have the right to do that without going back to Congress, Austin.
Look, I know I'm not a lawyer. David is a lawyer, so I'm not going to weigh in on what the legality. I know that the administration of laws, when there are administrative delays or if the parties that you're trying to require to do something are not able to comply with the law, that there is room for the changes in the administrative.
You're making this up as you go. That's not the way the laws in this country work, David.
No, he can't selectively enforce or not enforce this law. The public has a right to some certainty.
He's not selectively. Look, the argument that the waivers you're talking about were politically based is completely bogus. That's not true at all.
No, it isn't.
The waiver of the employer mandate for 1 year is so that the employers are able to get their computer systems set so that they can keep track of who has and who does not have insurance.
No, it's to buy off their opposition until the 2014 election, which is exactly what he's doing with Congress, exempting them from $5,000 for staff members and $11,000. This is real money that they don't have to pay, and these are the people, the wretches, who passed this bill. This is outrageous that the very people who passed it are exempting themselves. 1 year, this is big money, $11,000.
I respect David's passion on this. He's very passionate.
Yes.
But remember, the people that were working in Congress, the staffers, were not eligible for the tax credits that everybody else who goes into the exchange is eligible for. So they weren't in the same situation that everyone else was, even to the beginning. They were greatly disadvantaged.
I want to go back to the legal side of this. When we're talking about the Republicans in 2014, where's the legal challenge? That needs to come up.
Well, you know, as Mr. Levin has pointed out in his new book, The Liberty Amendments, we can't trust the Supreme Court to even overrule Obamacare in the big picture. We've got to try, though. Yes, of course we do. But in the meantime, we've got to try to defund it. And I say to these establishment people who are always cautioning restraint because waiting for the next election, we've got to start fighting. We've got to start inspiring the conservative grassroots to get out there and show them that we stand for something. And even if we fail in this Obamacare defunding, we give them a reason to vote for us.
Austin, we'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
It sounds like the recontract with America. I'm all for it.
All right. Let's appreciate it.
Condemn what President Obama did, please, on this unilateral implementation. Will you condemn it?
No, I will not condemn it. I told you, I think it's just an administrative delay.
It's real money. It's real money. That's semantics.
We got to run. Guys, good to see you both. Come up next.